Now in the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Hezekiah the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. He did that which was right in Yahweh's eyes, according to all that David his father had done. He removed the high places, broke the pillars, and cut down the Asherah. He also broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made, because in those days the children of Israel burned incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. He trusted in God, the God of Israel, so that after him was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, nor among them that were before him. For he joined with Yahweh. He didn't depart from following him, but kept his commandments, which Yahweh commanded Moses. Yahweh was with him. Wherever he went, he prospered. He rebelled against the king of Assyria, and didn't serve him. He struck the Philistines to Gaza and its borders, from the tower of the watchman to the fortified city. In the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria and besieged it. At the end of 3 years they took it. In the 6th year of Hezekiah, which was the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. The king of Assyria carried Israel away to Assyria, and put them in Halah, and on the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they didn't obey Yahweh their God's voice, but transgressed his covenant, even all that Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded, and would not hear it or do it. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah, and took them. Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish, saying, I have offended you. Withdraw from me. That which you put on me I will bear. The king of Assyria was appointed to Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in Yahweh's house, and in the treasures of the king's house. At that time, Hezekiah cut off the gold from the doors of Yahweh's temple, and from the pillars which Hezekiah king of Judah had overlaid, and gave it to the king of Assyria. The king of Assyria sent Tartan, Rabsaris, and Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah with a great army to Jerusalem. They went up and came to Jerusalem. When they had come up, they came and stood by the conduit of the upper pool, which is in the highway of the fuller's field. When they had called to the king, Eliakim the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder came out to them. Rabshakeh said to them, Say now to Hezekiah, the great king, the king of Assyria, says, What confidence is this in which you trust? You say, but they are vain words, there is counsel and strength for war. Now on whom do you trust that you have rebelled against me? Now, behold, you trust the staff of this bruised reed, even in Egypt. If a man leans on it, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who trust him. But if you tell me, we trust in Yahweh our God, isn't that he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away, and has said to Judah and to Jerusalem, You shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem? Now therefore, please give pledges to my master the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses if you are able on your part to set riders on them. How then can you turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put your trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Have I now come up without Yahweh against this place to destroy it? Yahweh said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, Shebna, and Joah, said to Rabshakeh, Please speak to your servants in the Syrian language, for we understand it. Don't speak with us in the Jews' language in the hearing of the people who are on the wall." But Rabshakeh said to them, "Has my master sent me to your master and to you to speak these words? Hasn't he sent me to the men who sit on the wall to eat their own dung and to drink their own urine with you?" Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language, and spoke, saying, "Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. The king says, 'Don't let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you out of his hand. Don't let Hezekiah make you trust in Yahweh, saying, Yahweh will surely deliver us, and this city shall not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah, for the king of Assyria says, Make your peace with me, and come out to me, and every one of you eat from his own vine, and every one from his own fig tree, and every one drink water from his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of olive trees and of honey, that you may live and not die. Don't listen to Hezekiah when he persuades you, saying, Yahweh will deliver us. Has any of the gods of the nations ever delivered his hand out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and of Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim, of Hena and Eva? Have they delivered Samaria out of my hand? Who are they among all the gods of the countries that have delivered their country out of my hand, that Yahweh should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? But the people stayed quiet, and answered him not a word, for the king's command was, Don't answer him. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, came with Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph, the recorder, to Hilkiah with their clothes torn, and told him Rabshakeh's words. When King Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went into Yahweh's house. He sent Eliakim, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz. They said to him, Hezekiah says, Today is a day of trouble, of rebuke and of rejection, for the children have come to the point of birth, and there is no strength to deliver them. It may be that Yahweh your God will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria his master has sent to defy the living God, and will rebuke the words which Yahweh your God has heard. Therefore, lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. Isaiah said to them, Tell your master this. Yahweh says, Don't be afraid of the words that you have heard, with which the servant, the king of Assyria, have blasphemed me. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, and he will hear news, and will return to his own land. I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. So Rabshakeh returned, and found the king of Assyria warring against Libnah, for he had heard that he had departed from Lachish. When he heard it said of Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, Behold, he has come to fight against you, he sent messengers again to Hezekiah, saying, Tell Hezekiah, king of Judah, this. Don't let your God, in whom you trust, deceive you, saying, Jerusalem will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all lands by destroying them utterly. Will you be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered them which my father has destroyed? Gozan, Haran, Rezev, and the children of Eden who were in Telassar? Where is the king of Hamath, the king of Arpad, and the king of the city of Sepharvaim, of Hena and Eva? Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. Then Hezekiah went up to Yahweh's house and spread it before Yahweh. Hezekiah prayed before Yahweh and said, Yahweh, the God of Israel, who are enthroned above the cherubim. You are God, even you alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, Yahweh, and hear. Open your eyes, Yahweh, and see. Hear the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to defy the living God. Truly, Yahweh, the kings of Assyria have laid waste to the nations and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire. For they were no gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore they have destroyed them. Now therefore, Yahweh our God, save us, I beg you, out of his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you, Yahweh, are God alone. Then Isaiah the son of Amoz sent to Hezekiah, saying, Yahweh the God of Israel says, You have the virgin daughter of Anne has despised you and ridiculed you. The daughter of Jerusalem has shaken her head at you. Whom have you defied and blasphemed? Against whom have you exalted your voice and lifted up your eyes on high? Against the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have defied the Lord, and have said, With the multitude of my chariots I have come up to the height of the mountains, to the innermost parts of Lebanon, and I will cut down its tall cedars and its choice cypress trees, and I will enter into his farthest lodging place, the forest of his fruitful field. I have dug and drunk strange waters, and I will dry up all the rivers of Egypt with the sole of my feet. Haven't you heard how I have done it long ago and formed it of ancient times? Now I have brought it to pass, that it should be yours to lay waste fortified cities into ruinous heaps. Therefore the inhabitants had little power. They were dismayed and confounded. They were like the grass of the field, and like the green herb, like the grass on the housetops, and like grain blasted before it has grown up. But I know your sitting down, your going out, your coming in, and your raging against me. Because of your raging against me, and because of your arrogance, it has come up into my ears, and therefore I will put my hook in your nose, and my bridle in your lips, and I will turn you back by the way which you came. This will be the sign to you. This year you will eat that which grows of itself, and in the second year that which springs from that, and in the third year sow and reap and plant vineyards, and eat their fruit. The remnant that has escaped of the house of Judah will again take root downward, and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem a remnant will go out, and out of Mount Zion those who shall escape. Yahweh's zeal will perform this. Therefore Yahweh says, concerning the king of Assyria, He will not come to this city, nor shoot an arrow there. He will not come before it with shield, nor cast up a mound against it. He will return the same way that he came, and he will not come to this city, says Yahweh. For I will defend this city to save it, for my own sake, and for my servant David's sake. That night Yahweh's angel went out and struck 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. When men arose early in the morning, behold, these were all dead bodies. So Sennacherib king of Assyria departed, went home, and lived at Nineveh. As he was worshipping in the house of Nishrod his god, Adrammelech and Shazer struck him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Ararat. Esarhaddon his son reigned in his place. In those days Hezekiah was sick and dying. Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came to him and said to him, Yahweh says, set your house in order, for you will die and will not live. Then he turned his face to the wall and prayed to Yahweh, saying, "Remember now, Yahweh, I beg you, how I have walked before you in truth, and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in your sight." And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Before Isaiah had gone out into the middle part of the city, Yahweh's word came to him, saying, "Turn back and tell Hezekiah, the prince of my people, Yahweh, the God of David, your father, says, I have heard your prayers. I have seen your tears. Behold, I will heal you. On the 3rd day you will go up to Yahweh's house. I will add to your days 15 years. I will deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city for my own sake, and for my servant David's sake." Isaiah said, "Take a cake of figs." They took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "What will be the sign that Yahweh will heal me, and that I will go up to Yahweh's house on the 3rd day?" Isaiah said, "This will be the sign to you from Yahweh, that Yahweh will do the thing that he has spoken. Should the shadow go forward 10 steps, or go back 10 steps? Hezekiah answered, "It is a light thing for the shadow to go forward 10 steps. No, but let the shadow return backward 10 steps." Isaiah the prophet cried to Yahweh, and he brought the shadow 10 steps backward, by which it had gone down on the sundial of Ahaz. At that time, Berodach Baladan, the son of Baladan king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that Hezekiah had been sick. Hezekiah listened to them, and showed them all the storehouse of his precious things, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the precious oil, and the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasuries. There was nothing in his house or in all his dominion that Hezekiah didn't show them. Then Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and said to him, "What did these men say? And where did they come to you?" Hezekiah said, "They have come from a far country, even from Babylon." He said, "What have they seen in your house?" Hezekiah answered, "They have seen all that is in my house. There is nothing among my treasuries that I have not shown them." Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Hear Yahweh's word. Behold, the days come that all that is in your house, and that which your fathers have laid up in store to this day, will be carried to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says Yahweh. They will take away some of your sons, who will issue from you, whom you will father, and they will be eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "Yahweh's word which you have spoken is good." He said, moreover, "Isn't it so if peace and truth will be in my days?" Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, and all his might, and how he made the pool and the conduit, and brought water into the city, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and Manasseh his son reigned in his place. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hephzibah. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, after the abominations of the nations whom Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed, and he raised up altars for Baal, and made an Asherah, as Ahab king of Israel did, and worshipped all the army of the sky, and served them. He built altars in Yahweh's house, of which Yahweh said, "I will put my name in Jerusalem." He built altars for all the army in the sky, in the two courts of Yahweh's house. He made his son to pass through the fire, practiced sorcery, used enchantments, and dealt with those who had familiar spirits and with wizards. He did much evil in Yahweh's sight, to provoke him to anger. He set the engraved image of Asherah that he had made in the house of which Yahweh said to David and to Solomon his son, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. I will not cause the feet of Israel to wander any more out of the land which I gave their fathers, if only they will observe to do according to that which I have commanded them, and according to all the law that my servant Moses, commanded them." But they didn't listen, and Manasseh seduced them to do that which was evil, more than the nations did whom Yahweh destroyed before the children of Israel. Yahweh spoke by his servants, the prophets, saying, "Because Manasseh, king of Judah, has done these abominations, and has done wickedly above all that the Amorites did who were before him, and has also made Judah to sin with his idols, therefore Yahweh the God of Israel says, Behold, I will bring such evil on Jerusalem and Judah, that whoever hears of it, both his ears will tingle. I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria, and the plumb line of Ahab's house, and I will wipe Jerusalem, as a man wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. I will cast off the remnant of my inheritance, and deliver them into the hands of their enemies. They will become a prey and a plunder to all their enemies, because they have done that which is evil in my sight, and have provoked me to anger since the day their fathers came out of Egypt, even to this day. Moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much, until he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another, in addition to his sin, with which he made Judah to sin, in doing that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and all that he did, and his sin that he sinned, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? Manasseh slept with his fathers, and was buried in the garden of his own house, in the garden of Uzzah, and Amon, his son, reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Meshullemeth, the daughter of Haruz of Jotbah. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, as Manasseh his father did. He walked in all the ways that his father walked in, and served the idols that his father served, and worshipped them. And he abandoned Yahweh, the God of his father, and didn't walk in the way of Yahweh. The servants of Amon conspired against him and put the king to death in his own house. But the people of the land killed all those who had conspired against King Amon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his place. Now the rest of the acts of Amon which he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? He was buried in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah, and Josiah his son reigned in his place. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Bozkath. He did that which was right in Yahweh's eyes, and walked in all the ways of David his father, and didn't turn away to the right hand or to the left. In the 18th year of King Josiah, the king sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, the son of Meshullam, the scribe, to Yahweh's house, saying, Go up to Hilkiah the high priest, that he may count the money which is brought into Yahweh's house, which the keeper of the threshold have gathered of the people. Let them deliver it into the hand of the workers who have the oversight of Yahweh's house. Let them give it to workers who are in Yahweh's house, to repair the damage to the house, to the carpenters, to the builders, to the masons, and for buying timber, and cut stone to repair the house. However, no accounting shall be asked of them for the money delivered into their hand, for they deal faithfully. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in Yahweh's house. Hilkiah delivered the book to Shaphan, and he read it. Shaphan the scribe came to the king, and brought the king's word again, and said, Your servants have emptied out the money that was found in the house, and have delivered it into the hands of the workmen who have oversight over Yahweh's house. Shaphan the scribe told the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest has delivered a book to me. Then Shaphan read it before the king. When the king had heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes. The king commanded Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam the son of Shaphan, Achbor the son of Milkiah, Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the king's servant, saying, Go inquire of Yahweh for me, for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is Yahweh's wrath that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not listened to the words of this book, to do according to that which is written concerning us. So Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, Achbor, Shaphan, and Asaiah went to Huldah, the prophetess, the wife of Shallum the son of Tikvah, the son of Harkas, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she lived in Jerusalem in the 2nd quarter. And they talked with her. She said to them, Yahweh the God of Israel says, Tell the man who sent you to me. Yahweh says, Behold, I will bring evil on this place and on its inhabitants, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah has read, because they have forsaken me, and have burned incense to other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place, and it will not be quenched. But to the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of Yahweh, tell him, Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, concerning the words with which you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before Yahweh when you heard what I spoke against this place and against its inhabitants, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and have torn your clothes and wept before me. I also have heard you, says Yahweh. Therefore, behold, I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be gathered to your grave in peace. Your eyes will not see all the evil which I will bring on this place. So they brought this message back to the king. The king sent, and they gathered to him all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. The king went up to Yahweh's house, and all the men of Judah and all the inhabitants of Jerusalem with him, with the priests, the prophets, and all the people, both small and great. He read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant which was found in Yahweh's house. The king stood by the pillar and made covenant before Yahweh to walk after Yahweh and to keep his commandments, his testimonies, and his statutes with all his heart and his soul, to confirm the words of this covenant that were written in this book. And all the people agreed to the covenant. The king commanded Hilkiah the high priest, and the priests of the 2nd order, and the keepers of the threshold, to bring out of Yahweh's temple all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the Asherah, and for the army of the sky. And he burnt them outside of Jerusalem, in the fields of Kidron, and carried their ashes to Bethel. He got rid of the idolatrous priests, whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places, in the cities of Judah, and in the places around Jerusalem. Those also who burned incense to Baal, to the sun, to the moon, to the planets, and to all the army of the sky. He brought them out of Asherah, from Yahweh's house, outside of Jerusalem, to the brook Kidron, and burnt it at the brook Kidron, and beat it to dust, and cast its dust on the graves of the common people. He broke down the houses of the male shrine, prostitutes that were in Yahweh's house, where the women wove hanging from the Asherah. He brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba. And he broke down the high places of the gates that were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand, at the gate of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places didn't come up to Yahweh's altar in Jerusalem, but they ate unleavened bread among their brothers. He defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech. He took away the horses that the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun at the entrance of Yahweh's house, by the room of Nathan-Melech, the officer who was in the court, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. The king broke down the altars that were on the roof of the upper room of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made in the two courts of Yahweh's house, and beat them down from there, and cast their dust into the brook Kidron. The king defiled the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the mountain of corruption, which Solomon, the king of Israel, had built for Ashtaroth, the abomination of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. He broke in pieces the pillars, cut down the Asherah poles, and filled their places with men's bones. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, even that altar and the high place he broke down, and he burned the high places, and beat it to dust, and burnt the Asherah. And Josiah turned himself. He spied the tombs that were there in the mountain, and he sent and took bones out of the tombs, and burned them on the altar, and defiled it, according to Yahweh's word, which the man of God, who proclaimed these things. Then he said, "What monument is that which I see?" The men of the city told him, "It is the tomb of the man of God, who came from Judah, and proclaimed these things that you have done against the altar of Bethel." He said, "Let him be. Let no one move his bones." So they let his bones alone, with the bones of the prophet who came out of Samaria. All the houses also of the high places that were in the cities of Samaria, which the kings of Israel had made to provoke Yahweh to anger, Josiah took away, and did to them according to all the acts that he had done in Bethel. He killed all the priests of the high places that were there, on the altars, and burned men's bones on them, and he returned to Jerusalem. The king commanded all the people, saying, "Keep the Passover to Yahweh your God, as it is written in the book of this covenant." Surely there was not kept such a Passover from the days of the judges who judged Israel, nor in all the days of the kings of Israel, nor of the kings of Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah, this Passover was kept in Yahweh to Jerusalem. Moreover, Josiah removed those who had familiar spirits, the wizards and the teraphim, and the idols, and all the abominations that were seen in the land of Judah and Jerusalem, that he might confirm the words of the law that were written in the book that Hilkiah the priest found in Yahweh's house. There was no king like him before him, who turned to Yahweh with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might according to the law of Moses, and there was none like him who arose after him. Notwithstanding, Yahweh didn't turn from the fierceness of his great wrath, with which his anger burned against Judah, because of all the provocation with which Manasseh had provoked him. Yahweh said, I will also remove Judah out of my sight, as I have removed Israel, and I will cast off this city which I have chosen, even Jerusalem, and the house of which I said, my name shall be there. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah, and all that he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? In his days Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up against the king of Assyria to the river Euphrates, and King Josiah went up against him. But Pharaoh Necho killed him at Megiddo when he saw him. His servants carried him dead in a chariot from Megiddo, brought him to Jerusalem, and buried him in his own tomb. The people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and anointed him, and made him king in his father's place. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, according to all that his fathers had done. Pharaoh Necho put him in bonds at Riblah in the land of Hamath, that he might not reign in Jerusalem, and put the land to a tribute of 100,000 talents, and a talent of gold. Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, the son of Josiah, king in the place of Josiah his father, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. But he took Jehoahaz away, and he came to Egypt and died there. Jehoiakim gave the silver and the gold to Pharaoh, but he taxed the land to give the money according to the commandment of Pharaoh. He exacted the silver and the gold of the people of the land from everyone according to his assessment, to give it to Pharaoh Necho. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebidah, the daughter of Pedaiah of Rumah. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, according to all that his fathers had done. In his days, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up, and Jehoiakim became his servant 3 years. Then he turned and rebelled against him. Yahweh sent against him bands of Chaldeans, bands of the Syrians, bands of the Moabites, and bands of the children of Ammon, and sent them against Judah to destroy it, according to Yahweh's word, which he had spoken by his servants the prophets. Surely at the commandment of Yahweh this came on Judah, to remove them out of his sight, for the sins of Manasseh, according to all that he did, and also for the innocent blood that he shed, for he filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and Yahweh would not pardon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and all that he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? So Jehoiakim slept with his fathers, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. The kings of Egypt didn't come out of his land any more, for the king of Babylon had taken from the brook of Egypt to the river Euphrates all that belonged to the king of Egypt. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. His mother's name was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan of Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, according to all that his father had done. At that time the servants of Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came up to Jerusalem, and the city was besieged. Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came to the city while his servants were besieging it, and Jehoiakim the king of Judah went out to the king of Babylon. He, his mother, his servants, his princes, and his officers, and the king of Babylon captured him in the 8th year of his reign. He carried out from there all the treasures of Yahweh's house, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made in Yahweh's temple, as Yahweh had said. He carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and the smiths. No one remained except the poorest people of the land. He carried away Jehoiakim to Babylon with the king's mother, the king's wives, his officers, and the chief men of the land. He carried them into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon, all the men of might, even 7,000, and the craftsmen and the smiths 1,000, all of them strong and fit for war. Even them the king of Babylon brought captive to Babylon. The king of Babylon made Mattaniah, Jehoiakim's father's brother, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah from Libnah. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For, through the anger of Yahweh, this happened in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out from his presence. Then Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. In the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem, and encamped against it, and they built forts against it and around it. So the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. On the 9th day of the 4th month, the famine was severe in the city, so that there was no bread for the people of the land. Then a breach was made in the city, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the way of King's Garden. Now the Chaldeans were against the city around it. And the king went by way of the Arabah. But the Chaldean army pursued the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. Then they captured the king, and carried him up to the king of Babylon, to Riblah, and they passed judgment on him. They killed Zedekiah's son before his eyes, then put out Zedekiah's eyes, bound him in fetters, and carried him to Babylon. Now in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which was in the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He burned Yahweh's house, the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem. He burned every great house with fire. All the armies of the Chaldeans, who were with the captain of the guard, broke down the walls around Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive the rest of the people who were left in the city, and those who had deserted to the king of Babylon, all the rest of the multitude. But the captain of the guard left some of the poorest of the land to work the vineyards and fields. The Chaldeans broke up the pillars of bronze that were in Yahweh's house, and the bases and the bronze sea that were in Yahweh's house, and carried away the bronze pieces to Babylon. They took away the pots, the shovels, the snuffers, the spoons, and all the vessels of bronze with which they ministered. The captain of the guard took away the fire pans, the basins, that which was for gold, and that which was made of silver for silver. The 2 pillars, the 1 sea, and the bases which Solomon had made for Yahweh's house. The bronze of all these vessels was not weighed. The height of 1 pillar was 18 cubits, and the capital of bronze was on it. The height of the capital was 3 cubits, with network and pomegranates on the capital around it, all of bronze, and the 2nd pillar with its network like these. The captain of the guard took Seraiah the chief priest, Zephaniah the 2nd priest, and the 3 keepers of the threshold, and out of the city he took another officer, who was set over the men of war, and 5 men of those who saw the king's face, who were found in the city, and the scribe, the captain of the army who mustered the people of the land, and 60 men of the people of the land who were found in the city. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took them, and brought them to the king of Babylon, to Riblah. the king of Babylon attacked them and put them to death at Riblah, in the land of Hamath. So Judah was carried away captive out of his land. As for the people who were left in the land of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon had left, even over them he made Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, governor. Now when all the captains of the forces, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had made Gedaliah governor, they came to Gedaliah to Mizpah, even Ishmael the son of Nethanel, Johanan the son of Kareah, Seraiah the son of Temehath, and Netophathite, and Jaazaniah the son of Maacathite, they and their men. Gedaliah swore to them and to their men, and said to them, "Don't be afraid because of the servants of the Chaldeans. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will be well with you." But in the 7th month, Ishmael the son of Nathaniel, the son of Elishama, the royal offspring, came, and 10 men with him, and struck Gedaliah so that he died, with the Jews and the Chaldeans that were with him at Mizpah. All the people, both small and great, and the captains of the forces, arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldeans. In the 37th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, Evil-Merodach king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, released Jehoiakim king of Judah out of prison. And he spoke kindly to him, and set his throne above the throne of the kings who were with him in Babylon, and changed his prison garments. Jehoiakim ate bread before him continually all the days of his life, and for his allowance there was a continual allowance given him from the king, every day a portion, all the days of his life. After these things, and this faithfulness, Sennacherib king of Assyria came, entered into Judah, encamped against the fortified cities, and intended to win them for himself. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come, and that he was planning to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters and the springs with which were outside the city, and they helped him. Then many people gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the brooks, and the brook that flowed through the middle of the land, saying, "Why should the kings of Assyria come and find abundant water?" He took courage, built up all the wall that was broken down, and raised it up to the towers with the other wall outside, and strengthened Millo in David's city, and made weapons and shields in abundance. He set captains of war over the people, gathered them together to him in the wide place at the gate of the city, and spoke encouragingly to them, saying, "Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or dismayed because of the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude who is with him, for there is a greater one with us than with him." rested themselves on the word of Hezekiah, king of Judah. After this, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sent his servants to Jerusalem. Now he was attacking Lachish, and all his forces were with him. To Hezekiah, king of Judah, and to all Judah who were at Jerusalem, saying, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, says, In whom do you trust that you remain under siege in Jerusalem? Doesn't Hezekiah persuade you to give you over to die by famine and by thirst, saying, Yahweh our God will deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Hasn't the same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Judah and Jerusalem, saying, You shall worship before one altar, and you shall burn incense on it? Don't you know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of my lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands in any way able to deliver their land out of my hand? Who was there among all the gods of those nations, which my fathers utterly destroyed, that could deliver his people out of my hand, that your God should be able to deliver you out of my hand? Now therefore, don't let Hezekiah deceive you nor persuade you in this way. Don't believe him, for no God of any nation was able to deliver his people out of my hand, and out of the hand of my fathers. How much less will your God deliver you out of my hand? His servants spoke yet more against Yahweh God, and against his servant Hezekiah. He also wrote letters insulting Yahweh the God of Israel, and speaking against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of the land, which have not delivered their people out of my hand, so shall the God of Hezekiah not deliver his people out of my hand. They called out with a loud voice in the Jews' language to the people of Jerusalem, who were on the wall, to frighten them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. They spoke of the God of Jerusalem as of the gods of the people of the earth, which are the work of men's hand. Hezekiah the king and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, prayed because of this, and cried to heaven. Yahweh sent an angel who cut off all the mighty men of valor, the leaders and the captains of the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of face to his own land. When he had come to the house of his God, those who came out of his own body killed him there with the sword. Thus Yahweh saved Hezekiah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all the others, and guided them on every side. Many brought gifts to Yahweh, to Jerusalem, and precious things to Hezekiah king of Judah, so that he was exalted in the sight of all nations from then on. In those days Hezekiah was terminally ill, and he prayed to Yahweh, and he spoke to him and gave him a sign. But Hezekiah didn't reciprocate appropriate to the benefit done to him, because his heart was lifted up. Therefore there was wrath on him, Judah and Jerusalem. However, Hezekiah humbled himself for the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that Yahweh's wrath didn't come on them in the days of Hezekiah. Hezekiah had exceedingly great riches and honor. He provided himself with treasuries for silver, for gold, for precious stones, for spices, for shields, and for all kinds of valuable assets. Also storehouses for the increase of grain, new wine and oil, and stalls for all kinds of animals and flocks in folds. Moreover, he provided for himself cities and possessions of flocks and herds in abundance, for God had given him abundant possessions. This same Hezekiah also stopped the upper spring of the water of Gihon, and brought them straight down on the west side of David's city. Hezekiah prospered in all his works. However, concerning the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon, who sent to him to inquire of the wonder that was done in the land, God left him to test him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, and his good deeds, behold, they are written in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the ascent to the tombs of his sons of David. All Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem honored him at his death. Manasseh his son reigned in his place. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, after the abominations of the nations whom Yahweh had cast out before the children of Israel. For he built again the high places which Hezekiah his father had broken down, and he raised up altars for the Baals, made Asherah, and worshipped all the army of the sky and served them. He built altars in Yahweh's house, of which Yahweh said, "My name shall be in Jerusalem forever." He built altars for all the army of the sky, practiced sorcery, divination, and witchcraft, and dealt with those who had familiar spirits, and with wizards. He did much evil in Yahweh's sight to provoke him to anger. He set the engraved image of the idol which he had made in God's house, of which God said to David and to Solomon his son, "In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. I will not any more remove the foot of Israel from off the land which I have appointed for your fathers, if only they will observe to do all that I have commanded them, even the law, the statutes, and the ordinances given by Moses." Manasseh seduced Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that they did more evil than did the nations whom Yahweh destroyed before the children of Israel. Yahweh spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but they didn't listen. Therefore Yahweh brought on them the captains of the army of the kings of Assyria, who took Manasseh in chains, bound him with fetters, and carried him to Babylon. When he was distressed, he begged Yahweh his God, and humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. He prayed to him, and he was entreated by him, and he heard his supplication, and brought him again to Jerusalem, into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that Yahweh was God. Now after this, he built an outer wall to David's city on the west side of Gihon, in the valley, even to the entrance at the fish gate. He encircled Ophel with it, and raised it up to a very great height, and he put valiant captains in all the fortified cities of Judah. He took away the foreign gods and the idol out of Yahweh's house, and all the altars that he had built up in the mountains of Yahweh's house, and in Jerusalem, and cast them out of the city. He built up Yahweh's altar, and offered sacrifices of peace offerings and of thanksgiving on it, and commanded Judah to serve Yahweh the God of Israel. Nevertheless the people still sacrificed in the high places, but only to Yahweh their God. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and his prayer to his God, and the words of the seers who spoke to him in the name of Yahweh the God of Israel, behold, they are written among the acts of the kings of Israel. His prayer also, and how God listened to his request, and all his sin and his trespass, and all the places in which he built high places, and set up the Asherah poles and the engraved images, before he humbled himself. Behold, they are written in the history of Hazoah. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and Amon his son reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, as did Manasseh his father, and Amon sacrificed to all the engraved images which Manasseh his father had made, and served them. He didn't humble himself before Yahweh, as Manasseh his father had humbled himself. But this same Amon trespassed more and more. His servants conspired against him and put him to death in his own house. But the people of the land killed all those who had conspired against King Ammon, and the people of the land made Josiah his son king in his place. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and walked in the ways of David his father. He did that which was right in Yahweh's eyes, and walked in the way of David his father, and didn't turn away to the right hand or to the left. For in the 8th year of his reign, when he was young, he began to seek after the God of David his father. And in the 12th year he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem from the high places, the Asherah poles, the engraved images, and the molten images. They broke down the altars of the Baals in his presence, and he cut down the incense altars that were high above them. He broke down the Asherah poles, the engraved images, and the molten images in pieces, made dust of them, and scattered it on the graves of those who had sacrificed to them. He burnt the bones of the priests on their altars, and purged Judah and Jerusalem. He did this in the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Simeon, even to Naphtali around their ruins. He broke down the altars, beat the Asherah poles and the engraved images into powder, and cut down all the incense altars throughout all the land of Israel, then returned to Jerusalem. Now in the 18th year of his reign, when he had purged the land and the house, he sent Shaphan the son of Azaliah, Maaseiah the governor of the city, and Joah the son of Joahaz the recorder, to repair the house of Yahweh his God. They came to Hilkiah the high priest and delivered the money that was brought into God's house, which the Levites, the keepers of the threshold, had gathered from the house of Manasseh, Ephraim, of all the remnant of Israel, of all Judah and Benjamin, and of the house of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. They delivered it into the hands of the workmen who had the oversight of Yahweh's house, and the workmen who laboured in Yahweh's house gave it to mend and to repair the house. They gave it to the carpenters and to the builders to buy cut stone and timber for the coupling, and to make beams for the house which the kings of Judah had destroyed. The men did the work faithfully. Their overseers were Jahath and Obadiah the Levites, of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam of the sons of the Kohathites, to give direction, and others of the Levites, who were skillful with musical instruments. Also, they were over the bearers of the burdens, and directed all who did the work in every kind of service. Of the Levites, there were scribes, officials, and gatekeepers. When they brought out the money that was brought into Yahweh's house, Hilkiah the priest found the book of Yahweh's law given by Moses. Hilkiah answered Shaphan the scribe, "I have found the book of the law in Yahweh's house." So Hilkiah delivered the book to Shaphan. Shaphan carried the book to the king, and moreover brought back word to the king, saying, "All that was committed to your servants they are doing. They have emptied out the money that was found in Yahweh's house, and have delivered it into the hand of the overseers and into the hand of the workmen." Shaphan the scribe told the king, saying, "Hilkiah the priest has delivered me a book." Shaphan read from it to the king. When the king heard the words of the law, he tore his clothes. The king commanded Hilkiah, Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, Adbon, the son of Micah, Shaphan the scribe, and Asai the king's servant, saying, "Go inquire of Yahweh for me, and for those who are left in Israel and in Judah, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is Yahweh's wrath that is poured out on us, because our fathers have not kept Yahweh's word to do according to all that is written in this book." So Hilkiah and those whom the king commanded went to Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum the son of Tokath, the son of Hasrah, keeper of the wardrobe, for she lived in Jerusalem in the second quarter, and they spoke to her to that effect. She said to them, Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, Tell the man who sent you to me, Yahweh says, Behold, I will bring evil on this place and on its inhabitants, even all the curses that are written in the book which they have read before the king of Judah, because they have forsaken me, and have burnt incense to other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath is poured out on this place, and it will not be quenched. But to the king of Judah, who sent you to inquire of Yahweh, you shall tell him this, Yahweh the God of Israel says, About the words which you have heard, because your heart was tender, and you humbled yourself before God when you heard his words against this place and against its inhabitants, and have humbled yourself before me, and have torn your clothes and wept before me, I also have heard you, says Yahweh. Behold, I will gather you to your fathers, and you will be gathered to your grave in peace. Your eyes won't see all the evil that I will bring on this place and on its inhabitants. They brought back this message to the king. Then the king sent and gathered together all the elders of Judah and of Jerusalem. The king went up to Yahweh's house with all the men of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the priests, the Levites, and all the people, both great and small. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant that was found in Yahweh's house. The king stood in his place and made covenant before Yahweh to walk after Yahweh and to keep his commandments, his testimonies, and his statutes with all his heart and with all his soul, to perform the words of the covenant that were written in this book. He caused all who were found in Jerusalem and Benjamin to stand. The inhabitants of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of God, the God of their fathers. Josiah took away all the abomination out of all the countries that belonged to the children of Israel, and made all who were found in Israel to serve, even to serve Yahweh their God. All his days they didn't depart from following Yahweh, the God of their fathers. Josiah kept a Passover to Yahweh in Jerusalem. They killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. Put the holy ark in the and according to the writing of Solomon his son, stand in the holy place, according to the divisions of the fathers' houses of your brothers, the children of the people, and let there be for each a portion of fathers' houses of the Levites. Kill the Passover lamb, sanctify yourselves, and prepare for your brothers to do according to Yahweh's word by Moses. Josiah gave to the children of the people, of the flocks, lambs, and young goats, all of them, for the Passover offerings, to all who were present, to the number of 30,000, and 3,000 bulls. These were of the king's substance. His princes gave a freewill offering to the people, to the priests, and to the Levites. Hilkiah, Zechariah, and Jehiel, the rulers of God's house, gave to the priests for the Passover offering 2,600 small livestock, and 300 heads of cattle. Coniah also, and Shemaiah, and Nethanel his brothers, and Abishai, and Jeiel, and Jozabad, the chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for the Passover offering 5,000 small livestock, and 500 heads of cattle. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites by their priests sprinkled the blood which they received from their hands, and the Levites skinned them. They removed the burnt offerings, that they might give according to the divisions of the fathers' houses of the children of the people, to offer to Yahweh, as it is written in the book of Moses. They did the same with the cattle. They roasted the Passover with fire, according to the ordinance. They boiled the holy offerings in pots, in cauldrons, and in pans, and carried them quickly to all the children of the people. Afterward they prepared for themselves and for the priests, because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were busy with the offering, the burnt offerings, and the fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. The singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place, according to the commandment of David, Asaph, Heman, and Jeduthun the king's seer, and the gatekeepers were at every gate. They didn't need to depart from their service, because their brothers, the Levites, prepared for them. So all the service of Yahweh was prepared the same day to keep the Passover, and to offer burnt offerings on Yahweh's altar, according to the commandment of King Josiah. The children of Israel who were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. There was no Passover like that kept in Israel from the days of Samuel the prophet, nor did any of the kings of Israel keep such a Passover as Josiah kept, with the priests, the Levites, and all Judah and Israel who were present, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. This Passover was kept in the 18th year of the reign of Josiah. After all this, when Josiah had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, went up to fight against Carchemish by the Euphrates, and Josiah went out and killed him. But he sent ambassadors to him, saying, "What have I to do with you, king of Judah? I have not come against you today, but against the house with which I have war. God has commanded me to make haste. Beware that it is God who is with me, that he not destroy you." Nevertheless Josiah would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself that he might fight with him, and didn't listen to the words of Necho from the mouth of God, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. The archers shot at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, "Take me away, because I am seriously wounded." So his servants took him out of his chariot, and put him in the second chariot that he had, and brought him to Jerusalem. And he died and was buried in the tombs of his fathers. All Judah and Jerusalem mourned for Josiah. Jeremiah lamented for Josiah, and all the singing men and the singing women spoke of Josiah in their lamentations to this day, and they made them an ordinance in Israel. Behold, they are written in the Lamentations. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah, and his good deeds according to that which is written in Yahweh's law, and his acts, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz the son of Josiah, and made him king in his father's place in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. The king of Egypt removed him from office at Jerusalem, and fined the land 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. The king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, and changed his name to Jehoiakim. Necho took Jehoahaz his brother, and carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh his God's sight. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against him, and bound him in fetters to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried some of the vessels of Yahweh's house to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah, and Jehoiakim his son reigned in his place. Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. At the return of the year, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the valuable vessels of Yahweh's house, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. Who had made him swear by God, but he stiffened his neck, hardened his heart against turning to Yahweh, the God of Israel. Moreover, all the chiefs of the priests of the people trespassed very greatly after the abomination of the nations, and they polluted Yahweh's house, which he had made holy in Jerusalem. Yahweh, the God of their fathers, sent to them by his messengers, rising up early and sending, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of God, despised his words, and scoffed at his prophets, until Yahweh's wrath rose among his people, until there was no remedy. Therefore he brought on them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion on young man or virgin, old man or infirm. He gave them all into his hand. All the vessels of God's house, great and small, and the treasures of Yahweh's house, and the treasures of the king and of his princes, all these he brought to Babylon. They burned God's house, broke down the wall of Jerusalem, burned all its palaces with fire, and destroyed all of its valuable assets. He carried those who had escaped from the sword away to Babylon, until they were servants to him and his sons, until the reign of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill Yahweh's word by Jeremiah's mouth, until the land had enjoyed its Sabbaths. As long as it lay desolate, it kept Sabbath to fulfill 70 years. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that Yahweh's word by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, Yahweh stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also put it in writing, saying, Cyrus, king of Persia, says, Yahweh the God of heaven has given all the kingdoms of the earth to me, and has commanded me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever there is among you of all his people, Yahweh his God be with him, and let him go up.